Welcome to From the Heart, Voice of a Conservative American Woman. I'm RuthAnn Hogue, and I'm your host. Today we welcome Jacob Angeli-Chansley. I think a lot of us have come to know you through your iconic image that has been portrayed in the media the last few years, ever since January 6, 2021. But today we get to meet Jake, the person behind the image. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So how did you come to be at the Capitol on January 6th, and how did the day play out for you?
I didn't have the money or the transportation or the lodging to go to Washington, D.C. for either December 12th or January 6th, and both of those MAGA million marches. But God took care of all those things for me. And that's how I got there. And things really turned sideways when the police shot tear gas, concussion grenades, and rubber bullets into the peaceful crowd. So that's when all hell broke loose.
And where were you at this point?
Actually, somewhat close to the initial breach, as funny as that is. I was trying to calm everybody down, and then I saw people like 10 feet from the barriers removed, and everybody was pouring through.
Okay. So when you got inside, from the video that I've seen, it looks like they were just letting people in. It looked like you had some escort.
Well, no.
Okay.
The
So if you can
initial
help.
breach, the initial breach was an illegal breach. People broke windows, they went inside, they kicked the door open from the inside. Okay.
Okay.
So everybody that went in from there was illegally trespassing into the building. That is an illegal breach. Okay.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to the police escorting me around the building, that was because I volunteered to help them after I had illegally entered the building. You see?
Okay.
So it wasn't that the police allowed us in the building. What it is that the police were escorting me around because I volunteered to help them. We were looking for an entry into the Senate chamber. And so that's why they were escorting me around, because I volunteered to help them clear people out as well as stop vandalism, violence, and theft.
Okay. Well, that clears up a lot. When we see video and we don't have the story behind it, we just kind of go on what we have, which is why you're here. So I want to make sure that we can clarify that. So how did it get from you're helping them to now you're arrested and you're in jail?
Oh, well, the media and my using my image and my image going viral is, I think, really what did it. Because that is what made me persona non grata. It's what made me social pariah, or public enemy number one. Everybody that was in law enforcement was looking for me. The FBI was looking for me. All local law enforcement were made aware of my presence and to keep an eye out for me. That's how this kind of stuff works. A national call for information about me, who I am, where I'm from, what my name is, all that stuff was like blasted all over the internet and the media outlets. So
yeah, you became like this iconic figure that everyone can picture when they picture January 6th. So when they caught up with you, I haven't heard the story before. So how and when did they catch up with you?
I called them. When I found out the FBI was looking for me, I called them and red pilled the FBI agent. I talked to them for like an hour. I asked if they were going to arrest me if I showed up on to the FBI field office when I got back to Phoenix. They said no. I was like, well, even if you are, I'll still show up. I'll still turn myself in. I just need to know, like, are you going to arrest me? And they said no. So at the time, it was just misdemeanor charges, and I didn't think the FBI was going to waste its time on misdemeanors. So I showed up, and when I showed up, they arrested me.
And I know this sounds trite, but did you feel betrayed or shocked?
Kind of. In that, like, I told them I'd show up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They already knew where I lived. It's like, dude, just say, yeah, you're gonna get arrested, dude. Sorry. Then okay, then let me tell my family, let me tell my friends, let me get my affairs in order.
Sure.
That's why I asked. I was just disappointed because it was like, well, dang it, you said you weren't gonna arrest me. You never want to trust the government at their word. It's trust but verify, right?
Right.
Like Ronald Reagan said. So Yeah, in all honesty, though, a part of me understands, or understood at least, why things happened the way that they did. The government was responding to the narrative of the media. And if we understand that the government and the media are hand in glove, then you begin to understand what was actually going on there and their need to vilify me and make an example out of me.
Okay. Yeah. There's this thought that you would hope that you could build some trust, but I'm sure in their mind, how they do it is they don't want you to flee. They don't want you to do
Well,
whatever.
yeah, but the thing
Yeah.
is that I've talked to FBI agents that will say to, have said to me, like, dude, that's BS. Real agents are going to be like, yeah, you're getting arrested. Are you going to show up or not? You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
won't trick you. I think it was Ivan Ranklin that calls the FBI the FB lie.
Oh,
I thought that was kind of funny.
yeah. No, I get that. So they arrested you. Where did it go from there? I mean,
I was
where did they
placed in
take you
solitary
next?
confinement in Fort. I was placed in solitary confinement in Florence, Arizona, then moved to Oklahoma, then to DC, then to Alexandria, then in solitary confinement for 10 and a half months. Forgive me, this is all like rather mundane at this point because I've
I
answered all
know.
these questions so many times. Then I went to Colorado for a psych eval. Then I went back to Alexandria. I pled guilty, sentenced to 41 months, did total of 27 behind bars, was released 3 weeks after Tucker Carlson aired that footage. And the footage had nothing to do with my release at all. I was already set to be released.
Okay.
But it was like divine providence. That being said, I was in prison for a total of 27 months, released to halfway house for 2 months, ended up being on house arrest for most of that time, got released on the 25th of May, 2023. I've been on probation ever since, and recently got pardoned from Trump, and now I'm no longer on probation.
That's an incredible story. And I'm sure you've said it so many times. So I appreciate you humoring me and telling us again to give us the backstory. So what makes this a why now story is that Trump came in and pardoned almost everyone. I understand that they commuted a few sentences.
I support the president in his decision.
I mean, is it a relief? Did you know to get to know other
Of
people, or you spent
course.
so much time in solitary that, I mean, how well did you get to know other people?
Well, I wasn't housed with other January Sixers.
Okay.
So, like, my situation's a little different. I was one of the first arrested. I was one of the first sentenced. I was one of the first to complete my sentence,
Okay.
as far as like, the prison time is concerned. So I'll just put it this way. I am more than pleased to see that lives that were once destroyed are now being repaired. The people like Enrique Tarrio or the other Proud Boys or the other Oath Keepers, there's sentences commuted, that they're out of prison, that they're not going to have to serve 20 years in prison because they didn't deserve 20 years or
Right.
15 or 17 or even a couple of days for what they did.
Yeah.
They did not deserve, I mean, Enrique Tarrio wasn't even in the city at the time. And the only reason why they threw 22 years at him was because they came to him with an offer to lie on the stand against Donald Trump in like an impeachment hearing, and he refused to do it, and then went and whistle blew and told the media what happened. And lo and behold, they threw 20 something years at him. So, yeah, this is the situation that we're dealing with. And so people like him getting a pardon, or at least getting their sentence commuted rather, is very, very, very important.
Perfect. I've been watching, and I'm sure you have too, a lot of the videos of people being reunited with their family or just coming on TikTok or on X and just either breaking down because they're so emotionally grateful or just telling us what a relief it is to be out, or that they did never expect it. And have you been watching those also? And how does it hit when you watch those?
I might have seen one or two. I'm just so glad that people are feeling the fresh air of freedom.
Yeah,
Tyranny is very stuffy.
I like that. That's a good quote. So It's heartbreaking to think. One of the guys said when he came out, he said that he thought everyone had forgotten about them, that nobody cared, that they were just lost and locked away, that they'd never get out. Did you ever feel like that? That people would just,
Of
that
course.
nobody cared?
Of course. But the thing is that one of the things that kept me going, and maybe this is something that, you know, maybe the DC jail wasn't giving the guy his mail, but my mail ended up really helping me get through when I was having those kind of days.
Okay.
Because occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally I would get stacks of mail, from people that were offering words of encouragement, or, letting people know that they're not forgotten. So like things like the Patriot Mail Project, if you haven't heard about that, I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's basically like something for J6ers, from what I understand, where they were sending letters or postcards and stuff to these J6ers in prison, letting them know, or in jail, letting them know that they were not forgotten.
I love that. I wish I'd have known about that then. I haven't been a big consumer of news media in recent years, and I've just very recently started getting active on TikTok and finding
Well,
out.
it wasn't in the media. That's why nobody really knew about it, because it wasn't in the media. What nobody really knew about, the only people that knew about it were people that were trying to help support January Sixers.
Hmm. Well, I was interested in them. I just didn't know. It's like, well, what can we do? You listen to, you're in Arizona like I am. So I would listen to, you've probably heard JT in the morning on KFYI. And so
On
I
his
get a
show
lot of
twice,
my,
actually.
huh?
I said I've been on his show twice, actually.
Yeah, I've probably heard you on there because I had been an avid listener to KFYI way before JT ever came on there.
Yeah,
So
me
that's
too,
like,
actually. I used to listen when my dad was when I would go with my dad when I was a kid. He would drive around the state, and I would listen to Rush Limbaugh and stuff like that on KFI. I'd listen to the morning show. I forgot the name of the guy that used to do the morning show when I was a kid. But yeah, we listened to that. I've been listening to KFI since I was really young.
yeah, same here. I feel like if Rush had been on, that we may have gotten more attention, but now that we have the whole social media and the new media people out there with Tucker and Bongino and Benny Johnson, we have so many sources now. And before it used to just be Rush and JT and whoever else. So it's a lot to keep up with. It's more than I can ever possibly consume at once. Do you have any favorite ones that help you keep in touch with things, or that maybe you felt got the message out that would have been better for people to follow or listen to?
Not January 6th,
Or that, or anything in general
just
as
in
things.
general.
Yeah.
Well, look, what you got to do is you got to learn how and where to look. You want to follow or listen to people, rather. You want to listen to people that have spoken the truth at great personal expense,
Hmm.
right? So, for example, Joe Rogan got hit real hard when he started talking about ivermectin and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
He had a lot. He has a lot to lose, and he still stuck to his guns. He didn't cave, right? Or Tucker Carlson releasing the footage that he did and talking about
Yes.
some of the things that he's talked about. Another good example is somebody that has stuff to lose. Russell Brand, also somebody that has a lot to lose and has chosen to continue sticking it out despite all the chaos that was brought into his life. Donald Trump, you see, Elon Musk. These people have a lot to lose, and they're willing to sacrifice it for what? For truth? For something more, basically, something more than material wealth, something greater than themselves. So the way I look at it is I don't trust any one source. I think that's part of the problem, is that we all think that somehow we can go to one source for all of our information. That's how you get lied to.
Right.
Because if lying to you will make somebody money, you better freaking believe they're going to do it. It doesn't matter if it's on television or not. Okay. So, especially when you factor in things like liability shields in the government and in the law. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Okay. So Carrie Lake, she sacrificed her career to go in the public eye. Some people think she's legit, some people don't. Have you had any contact with her? Just curious, because she's one of the people who has come out and said that she didn't like what she was doing in the local media where we are, and that she wanted to turn over a new leaf. So, any thoughts? And not that I want to put you on the spot with Carrie, but I just figured.
I'll just say I hope that she's being authentic.
I hope so too. She's going to do the whole America's Voice thing, and I hope that.
I know what she's gonna do. I know. That's why I said I hope that she's being authentic.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that she has the potential to do a lot of good.
She does.
The question is why is she doing what she's doing? If she's doing it for, shall we say, selfless reasons, then her behavior will reflect.
Right. Well, I guess we'll find out, because she's finally, instead of running for something, she finally has an office, and we'll see how it goes. So I look forward to that. I used to work in the local media also, but so when I saw that Carrie Lake had walked away from it to do conservative, and especially running in politics, I took note. I'll admit I signed her petition to get her on the ballot, to get her going and see how it went.
I'll put it this way. I would way rather her in office than Katie Hobbs. I would way rather her be in office than Gallego or Cinema or whatever. You know what I mean? I think she would do an incredibly, a way better job than Mark Kelly. So in that regard, I wish that she was either governor or a senator. But God has a plan for us all.
He does. He absolutely does. And speaking of that, what's your current plan? What are you doing right now that you want to share with, J6 is so long ago. It doesn't, I'm sure to you, it feels like so long ago and yet like yesterday, but it's 2025. What's on the agenda? What's new for Jake?
I'm creating culture.
Okay.
Our culture has become demoralized. Our culture has become heavily demoralized and diluted and destroyed. It's become self-destructive and in some ways even self-cannibalizing. So that all has to change. And as a shamanic practitioner, it is my duty, my honor to change those things.
So explain for us a little bit what a shaman is. And I know you go by American Shaman. We've seen
kind of. I don't really go by that. It's my Twitter handle is America Shaman, because
Gotcha.
The media called me QAnon Shaman. But a shamanic practitioner is different than somebody that calls themselves a shaman. Somebody that calls themselves a shaman likely is not one. Okay. There's people that practice shamanism because shamanism is a way of life. It's a way of viewing the world. It's a way of seeing reality. Okay. And our role in it, in our relationship to the ecosystem and others. That is what shamanism is it's a way of life. It's not a person. Now, I will say that the term shaman is Siberian or Mongolian. It means the one who knows. And it can be a man or a woman. The man or a woman can be the one who knows. And when we say the one who knows, what does that mean? The one who knows the history, the one who knows the songs and the dances, the one who knows the myths and the stories, the one who knows the plants that heal, the one who knows, the list goes on and on. You see? Okay. So that is, it's a medicine man or a medicine woman. It's a witch doctor. Cultures have shamanism in their roots, and all religions in one form or another are actually practicing shamanism.
So there was an independent film that actually did make it into theaters in Arizona a few years ago that featured a shaman in it. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Do you remember seeing anything like that?
The only thing I can think of that would be like that would be DMT, the spirit molecule. That there was a shaman in that movie. It was one of the people that took the DMT and was like giving an interview, but that's about it. Okay.
Yeah, I should have looked that up because I actually went and I was invited. I get invited to go and view a lot of independent films, and sometimes I write about them and sometimes I don't. But that was one of them that I was invited to go check out. And Harkins, a lot of times they'll run the independent films out there in Mesa. So anyway, we'll just get past that one since it's not something that you saw anyway. So how do you do that? How do you build this culture that you're wanting to encourage? And what does that culture look like?
All cultures are based on the individual's relationship to others and the ecosystem.
Okay.
Um, there's also certain things that culture attempts to explain, like, the unstoppable processes of life: sleeping, dreaming, birthing, dying, right? The necessity to eat. These things all play a role in the culture, and so therefore, like I said, the culture is essentially the individual's relationship to others and the ecosystem. Now, there are many different ways you can have a relationship to others in the ecosystem. You see? And so the shaman is the one that attempts to distill the most productive and regenerative form of culture that is able to be passed on to the next generation, and successfully and successively, over and over and over again, so that the generation so that each generation has a symbiotic relationship with the environment and the previous generation that was before them and the next generation to come.
So do you have children?
No.
Just
No,
wondering if
no.
how it plays into. I know
I
there's generations in general, but I just figured that was a question to ask.
No, I am not married and have no children. I worked with children in group homes for 6.5 years. I also did some volunteer work with Free Arts for Abused Kids of Arizona, um, doing artwork with kids, that were like in the system. Uh, but no, I have no children. But I do have a intense desire to ensure that they have a wonderful world to live in.
Okay. I've actually gone and done some volunteering for that same group, and it's interesting how they use the artwork to help those children who come from abusive situations. And uh, I totally commend you for that, because one of the things that I hope to push forward with this podcast is how important, and I'll say the home, the family, the children, especially our teenagers, it feels like, because they seem to get so lost, but they need a sense of purpose. They need a sense of culture. Where did they come from? Where are they going? In my own estimation, it feels like that's something that's missing for a lot of them. So they go searching and they find things that aren't necessarily good for them, which is not good for the society in general. And I don't know how.
Think about it. Well, think about that then. The culture itself is not one that is conducive to giving them or helping them to discover their identity.
Right.
You see? So the cultural model it's morally bankrupt. It's demoralized, because if it doesn't help guide the individual to the development of a strong identity, or so like self-realization or self-actualization, then the society is filled with lost puppies.
And we've got so many of them. I'm going to interject just a little bit here. I know this is your story, but just so that you kind of have an idea where I'm coming. I did spend some time as a teacher in Durango, juvenile detention, and I worked with the kids there for, I don't know, 5 or 6 months. And I fell in love with them, honestly. I mean, these were Maricopa County's little gangsters. I hate to call them that, but, and there were some that, they go to the Southeast facility, they call it SEF, some that come to Durango. And I worked with the kids who were, it's in the skills level. So they weren't able to go and test for their GED yet, because that's one of the things they do in school in juvenile detention. So I had the kids who were from age 8 to 17 who did not pass the skills test. And my job was to get them up on their skills so that they could go into the GED prep class and help them learn how to navigate a system that isn't food stamps and benefits, how to make a budget, how to do a job interview, how to write a resume, how to look for a job, how to now balance a checkbook, which, that's a outdated skill and now, but it was on the curriculum. And when you're a teacher, you teach what they have you do. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I couldn't stay there longer. It wasn't a good place for me to be, but I fell in love with the kids and I promised them, I said, I don't know how and I don't know when, but I'm not going to forget you. I'm going to keep working for this community in some way and somehow. So it really makes me feel good to hear you say the things that you're saying because we've got a common mission. So you're helping me with one of my goals when I had no idea. I just had you on for J6 and here you are helping me with something I want to do.
I'm still working to help children. I just launched a meme coin where we're using a lot of the proceeds that are gathered from the meme coin to basically donate to causes like Free Arts for Abused Kids of Arizona, so that we can actually continue to help, especially in particular, I want to help the kids that were abused in the trafficking that's taken place in the last 4 years. Like
Oh my goodness.
those, that was my intention when I launched this meme coin and did this for those kids in particular, which Donald Trump apparently just rescued, or his administration just rescued 75 to 80,000 of the 325,000 children that were missing across the border. So
That's incredible. I mean, and that just all of the changes that have been happening. He's been president, what, 9 days now, something like that. Do you have any, I mean, how would you rate his performance so far as coming out the
grade
gate?
A. It's probably one of the best, presidential first weeks in presidential history. I was trying to support him in every way that I could, but January 6th was about more of a spiritual thing than it was as much as it was political, because politics is downstream from culture and culture is downstream from spirituality. So can you dig where I'm coming from on that?
Okay.
I
So,
had multiple reasons for going on January 6th that go far beyond what most people can imagine.
all right. That's good enough. So you mentioned that you have been released from probation since you were pardoned. I saw where at least one J6er is still on probation, but just with a new probation officer. Have you heard any rumblings or anything like why that would be, or any thought that
The only reason why I could think of that would be is that the person might have already been on probation for a previous charge, and then they were like there on January 6th and had a misdemeanor, and then they got slapped with more time because they were there and they were on probation or something. So
I see?
yeah, that's the only thing I can think of would be that there was something prior. Some of these people, not many, but some did have prior records.
Sure.
So
Okay. All right. So I'm glad to hear it's not something that's going around. Do you have any fear of the public or officials coming after you at this point, or are you just you're golden, you've got your spiritual grounding and you're fine?
think of the birds of the air. They do not reap, they do not sow, yet our Heavenly Father feeds them, right? Let tomorrow's troubles be for tomorrow. Let today's troubles be for today, right?
Okay. Now I saw that you've written and published a book.
More than one. I've written and published two.
Can you tell us about your books and where we can find them in case somebody wants to get a hold of one?
Yeah. You can go to my website, ForbiddenTruthAcademy.com. That's Forbidden Truth, TRUTH, Academy.com. My book, One Mind at a Time, A Deep State of Illusion by Jacob Angeli is there. You can just click on the link and it'll take you to Amazon. It is a self-published book. It is only $9.99 and it's only 150 pages. I don't make much money on it at all. And it's highly informative, but I must warn you, some of the stuff is extremely disturbing. So just, fair warning. It's almost like a non-fiction horror, you know. But I will also say that my other book, Will and Power, Inside the Living Library by Lone Wolf, LOANWOLF, often pops up next to One Mind at a Time, A Deep State of Illusion. When you click it on that one on Amazon, it'll say, you know, people that bought this also often bought this, right? So I would say get both of them. The Will and Power Inside the Living Library is a fiction, and it's the first book I ever wrote. It is a little more wordy because it's the first book I ever wrote, but I'm quite proud of it because the story itself is very interesting. And it's like a lot of the shamanic wisdom that that has been imparted to me from on high is actually in that fictional book. So I'm trying to tell truth through fiction.
Okay. And I think that's a powerful way of storytelling to promote a message. So I know you do the X spaces for the meme coin that you're doing for this benefit. Can you tell people how they can follow you to learn more about that?
Oh yeah, just go to the website shamanmeme.com. We actually just made it to where you can use like Apple Pay or Google Pay or something like that. Basically, where you can use your debit card or something to buy the meme coin and get yourself a wallet. We need to get everybody on Web3. So that's part of the reason why we're doing that. So if you really want to support the cause, all you got to do is go to shamanmeme.com and you can get yourself a shaman meme coin. And I would recommend that you hold on to it. Just buy it if you're going to buy it, just hold on to it. Get yourself some and hold on to it. Get in the crypto space, get in the Web3 space. I mean, this is not financial advice. I'm not giving any financial advice. I'm not telling anybody to buy anything. I'm just saying if they want to help with the cause, if they believe in the mission, this is how they can do it. Shamanmeme.com. And the thing is that we're not just doing this to support and help children. This is one of the things that we cover in the spaces when we're talking about the cryptocurrency, the Shaman meme coin, or just Shaman coin. And that is that we are also, at the same time, also bringing to the crypto space the founding principles of America. We are bringing the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, this like idea of almost like an internet Bill of Rights to the internet, to the crypto space, where we are creating a level playing field. We are coming at people on the square, totally square with people and right. And this is how it is. Truth, unity, trust, like stability. That's what we're bringing to the crypto space. We're attempting to use the crypto space as a platform to create something that is so much more than just trading meme coins, but is like the next stage of economic and financial evolution.
Okay, so I know about the blockchain and it's an immutable ledger and all of that. So people can't.
You can't launder money.
Exactly. So, sounds good to
Hey,
me.
what happened?
Imagine that. Yeah, it sounds like a pretty good deal most of the time. I mean, there are hucksters who go out there and they pull, the rug pulls and all those kind of things where someone invests and then they pull it out and everyone loses their money. So in the crypto space,
this isn't like that. We can't do that with this crypto. We cannot give people the Hawk 2 treatment because that happened. If I'm not mistaken, that Hawk 2 stuff happened in like the first 24 hours of the launch of that coin. So this coin has been around for almost a week or a little over a week or something like that, so people can't get the Hawk 2 treatment. That's what I'm saying is that this coin is designed specifically to be like a stable way to create a level playing field for people in the crypto space so that they don't come in and get screwed, that they can come in and they can hold on to this stable or live or like exist in this stable platform. Does that make sense?
It does. And I thank you for saying that because I wanted that to be explained so that someone watching the podcast doesn't tune out because like, oh, I've heard this and that about crypto. But I think that's amazing that you're doing it. I do want to let you know I have a house parent for one of the group homes in the East Valley. So I think you'll probably enjoy that. And I think my listeners will enjoy that too. I'm not going to say too much about it just yet, but it's going to be a continuing theme. And I'm so thrilled that I got to have you on here. I'm glad that I met you at AmFest. Just happened to, it's like, oh, you were so visible because you were in your gear
Miguel, yeah.
Yep, I had seen you the year before and I didn't want to bother you because I don't want to be one of those people who's just bothering the heck out of you. But then I thought, he's dressed up. He wants to be bothered. He wants to be noticed. So
Well, I mean, I do it for the people, and I'm glad that you decided to say something this year.
I'm glad I did too. Well, let's keep in touch. If you have new things that happen that you want to share that might be a good story, either for another podcast or I'm going to be doing some blogging as well. But I appreciate you coming today. And is there anything that I haven't asked that you want to add before we wrap it up for today?
No, I think that should be all. Thank you for your time and attention. Time and attention is the currency of the universe. So I thank you for, being willing to give me some of your time and attention today.
And likewise, I thank you for coming on and visiting with me today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to hear Angeli-Chansley. Visit us on conservativeamericanwoman.com. Follow us on X at WhiptailPodcast or on TikTok at WhiptailPodcast. From the Heart is also hosted on Rumble under Whiptail Creative.